Hi, Todd Martin here with The Walking Code. In almost all my other videos, I'm describing how rotation of the core is used to perform functional whole body movement. This can be challenging to convey because the rotation that we perform when we walk and when we do other movements often is not visible. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate some examples of how we can visualize or better understand rotation of the core with some simple exercises. To begin, I'm going to stand with my feet in a relatively wide stance, and I'm going to shift my weight from one side to the other. As I shift from one side to the other, I'm keeping my head level, I'm flexing my knees as I shift, and that keeps the body moving on one line. As I do this, it's very difficult to appreciate any rotation that's happening, but that's because the rotation of the body is occurring at three levels at the same time. You're seeing rotation of the upper torso, or the thoracic spine. You're seeing rotation of the lower torso, or the lumbar spine, and you're seeing rotation of the hips. All three of these elements of rotation are occurring simultaneously, so depending on the type of movement I'm doing, the visible rotation is often canceled out. That's precisely the case when I'm shifting from one side to the other. If I break down the three elements of rotation so you can see them, what I'm doing when I shift from my right to my left is I'm turning my upper torso or my thoracic spine to the left. I'm turning my lower torso or lumbar spine to the left, and I'm flexing my left hip joint. So why does it look like there's no rotation happening? Number one is because the upper torso rotation and lower torso rotation are all turning to the left or counterclockwise. Flexion of my hip is actually pulling the body to the right at the same time. When I shift from right to left, I have counterclockwise rotation of my spine, and then I have clockwise rotation of the pelvis, all occurring at the same time. The net result is a visibly straight movement. Let's take the example of a steering wheel. If I hold a steering wheel and I want to turn it to the right or clockwise, I can push with my left side to turn the steering wheel clockwise. If I want to turn it counterclockwise, I can push with the right side to turn it counterclockwise. I can also pull on the left side of the steering wheel to turn the steering wheel counterclockwise, or I can pull on the steering wheel on the right side to turn it clockwise. The upper abdominal muscles on the right side turn the body to the left or counterclockwise. The upper abdominal muscles on the left side turn the body to the right or clockwise. And so I can consider that a pushing action because the body moves in the opposite direction from the side that's active. My lower abdominal muscles work in the opposite fashion. My lower abdominal muscles on the right pull my body to the right or clockwise, and my lower abdominal muscles on the left pull my body to the left or counterclockwise. So my upper and lower abdominal muscles on the same side of the body work in opposition to one another. When I do this weight shifting exercise, I'm using my upper abdominal muscles on the right and my lower abdominal muscles on the left to push on the upper and pull on the lower, my body to the left. When I go to the right, my upper abdominal muscles on the left and my lower abdominal muscles on the right are shifting the weight. So I'm shifting from right to left using the upper abdominal muscles on the right, lower on the left. I'm shifting from left to right using the upper abdominal muscles on the left and the lower abdominal muscles on the right. At the same time, I'm using my hip joints to power the movement. My hip joints can either push by extending my body towards the opposite side, or they can pull by flexing my body towards the same side. So when I flex my right hip, it has an effect of turning my body towards the right. When I flex my left hip, it has the effect of pulling my body towards the left. On the other hand, when I extend my right hip, it has the effect of pushing my body to the left. When I extend my left hip, it has the effect of pushing my body to the right. When I perform my weight shifting exercise, my right hip is flexing or pulling the body to the right, and both my upper torso and lower torso are turning to the left, pushing and pulling my body to the left. The net result is no visible rotation. And so when I shift from left to right, I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to push my body to the right with the upper torso. I'm going to pull my body to the right with the lower torso, and I'm going to flex my left hip, which causes the rotation going towards the left. The net result is an even shifting of weight. So I'm now going to shift from the right to the left and to the left to the right. From right to left, left to right. So practice shifting your weight from the right to the left and the left to the right. Try to keep your head level, not bouncing up and down. We keep the head level by allowing the knee to flex, accepting the body weight. I let my right knee flex as I shift to the right. I let my left knee flex as I shift from the right to the left. During each of these motions, there's rotation of the upper torso and lower torso, and rotation of the hip joint at the same time. Now I'm going to do the same demonstration, shifting from right to left and left to right, but instead of flexing the active hip, I'm going to extend the active hip. When I do this, you're going to see the pushing effect of the hip action and how that affects the rotation of the torso and the rotation of the whole body. So, when we shifted from right to left, I was using flexion of the right hip and rotation of the torso to the left. There was no visible body turn when that happened. Now I'm going to do the same motion, but I'm going to extend the right hip, which causes a pushing effect, turning the body to the left. At the same time, I rotate my upper and lower torso. And now, you're going to see an actual turn of the body. Now I'm going to get back to my neutral position. I'm going to start from my left side and shift to the right, extending my left hip and turning the upper and lower torso to the right. Using the flexion of the hip, there's no rotation visible because the effect of the hip rotation opposes the effect of the upper and lower torso rotation. When I extend the hip, you actually see the rotation happening because all of the rotational effects are occurring in the same direction. Now let's see what happens if we use the rotation of the core incorrectly. That means, what if we try to turn both sides of the core at the same time in opposite directions? So let's look at the steering wheel example again. Let's say I have a steering wheel in my left and right hand. If I try to push the steering wheel to the left using my right hand, at the same time I try to push the steering wheel to the right using my left hand, I end up fighting against each other, and so no rotation happens. When I apply the same to my torso rotation, I can't rotate if I am turning both sides against each other, and in fact, since rotation of the upper torso also flexes the spine forward, when I combine rotation of the left side and right side together, what happens is a shift of my body forward that pitches my body forward and actually causes me to fall forward. Or if I compensate, it causes me to pitch forward at the waist, which is not what we want when we're trying to move effectively. So as I'm practicing my weight shift from right to left and left to right, if I'm rotating my upper torso towards the left, but then I at the same time try to activate my upper torso on the left side, I'm now going to pitch forward and actually fall forward. That's why we don't use both sides at the same time. When I apply this to my lower torso or my lower abdominal muscles pitch my pelvis backwards, or forward on the bottom, backwards on the top. When I shift weight correctly, I'm activating either my left lower torso to keep my pelvis tucked on the left, or my right lower torso to keep my pelvis tucked on the right. If I activate them both at the same time, what I get is a collapsing backwards action as my pelvis tips too far backwards. So I can't use both sides of my upper torso at the same time without pitching forwards, and I can't use rotation of my torso at the same time without pitching the body backwards. The same also applies to my hip action. If I try to push my body to the left with extension of the right hip and try to push my body to the right with extension of the left hip, they fight against each other, and I won't have any rotation, but I will actually have another pushing my body over backwards. So when we move effectively, we have to use rotation on one side of the upper torso at a time, rotation of one side of the lower torso at the time, and one side of the hips at a time. This creates effective whole body movement, and this is how our body is structured and designed to move correctly. When we move normally in everyday life, these sort of actions are just part of our normal body movement or body memory that we grow up with over our lifetime, and we don't have to think about it. Now, how does this apply to walking? When I'm walking, I'm going to start from this position here. As I change weight, I'm shifting my body to my left leg by rotating my upper torso on the left clockwise and rotating my lower torso on the right counterclockwise. I'm going to shift back and forth, and as I shift, you don't see any rotation of the body, but what you see is the motion of the arms, which are being propelled by the rotation of the upper torso. When I turn forward with the upper torso on the left, my left arm goes forward. When I shift back, I'm turning forward with the right, and that's what makes my right arm go forward. So here I'm shifting back and forth. The rotation is invisible, but the effect of the rotation is visible in the swing of the arms. After I finish shifting forward, then I change my hip action from flexion of my right hip to flexion of the left hip, and that's what completes a normal step. If I'm going to try turning when I take a step, I'm going to begin by turning both my left upper torso and my right lower torso clockwise. Then when I'm ready to complete the step, it creates a full body turn. But that full body turn was created at this point in time when I set it up correctly with rotation of the upper torso and lower torso, both clockwise. Now the completion of the step looks like this. Now I'm going to do a slightly different demonstration of the weight shifting from right to left and left to right. And instead of turning the upper and lower torso in the same direction with each shift, I'm now going to keep my upper torso turning towards the right as I shift my weight to the left, and you see how it turns the body. I can now straighten my body back out by reversing the upper torso rotation. Now I'm going to shift to the right. My upper torso is turning to the left, my lower torso is turning to the right, and my flexion of the hip pulls the body towards the left. As I shift my body to the right, I'm turning my upper torso to the left, my lower torso to the right, and my flexion of the left hip is pulling the body towards the left. I'm now going to straighten the body back out by turning my upper torso to the right, and then I'm going to shift my weight from right to left, turning my upper torso to the right, lower torso to the left, and flexion of my right hip pulls the body towards the right. I'm going to straighten my body back out again and practice this exercise. And now we're back to shifting all the weight in the same direction. The rotation of the core not only affects the shifting of weight of the body, it also projects energy into the arms. When I'm flexing my hip to shift from one side to the other, I'm not providing a lot of outward energy into the arms, so you can see the arms remain relatively passive by my side. Now when I extend my hip and turn the body, if I turn my upper torso towards my extending hip, it actually is going to project my arm outwards. It's going to give some outward projection as I turn into this extending hip. So let's do an exercise demonstrating how you can shift weight from one side to the other and see the effect on the arms of that rotation. I'm going to begin with our original shifting of weight, turning the upper body and lower body away from a flexing hip. Flexing the left, turning the upper and lower torso to the right, flexing the right hip and turning the upper and lower torso to the left. Now, when I get to the end of this motion, I'm going to extend my right hip and turn my upper torso to the left at the same time. That's going to project my arm outwards. And now I'm going to do a pushing action, extending my left hip, turning my upper body to the right, and turning my lower body to the left. This is an energy called push. Now I'm going to continue extending my left hip, and I'm going to switch the upper and lower torso rotation. So my upper torso is now going to turn to the left, and my lower torso is going to turn to the right. And I'm setting myself up to now push back in the other direction. And I'm going to shift, push, shift, push, shift, push. At the end of the weight shift, I'm changing the upper and lower torso rotation, which affects the motion of the arms. And then I'm going to simply extend my hip and push back in the opposite direction. I'm shifting the upper and lower torso rotation. Now I'm shifting the hip extension. Shifting the upper and lower torso rotation, and now I'm shifting the hip extension from left to right. Now from this position, I'm going to shift my weight back to the right, but keeping my upper and lower torso rotation the same. So as I push back with my left hip, I'm going to keep extending my upper torso to the left, and I'm going to keep rotating my lower torso to the right. Now I'm going to shift the arms by turning my upper torso rotation from right to left to right. And now I'm going to shift back, turning my lower torso to the left while keeping my upper torso rotation to the right. And we're going to do this exercise in Tai Chi called cloud hands. This is good practice for feeling the movement of the core and its connection to the arms.